I'm here with Gary Stotler. Tim Coffin connected us, and he's got a great story. He's lost over 170 pounds. So, Gary, just want to say thanks. Thanks for getting up early to chat with me after a day of travel. And maybe we could just start off with a little bit about where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. I live in Laramie, Wyoming. I have a wife, two kids, a 5 and a 7-year-old, both boys, and they keep me running everywhere. By day, I'm a car salesman, and by morning, I'm a runner.
Awesome. So, you lost 170 pounds plus, right?
Yeah. At one point, it was quite a bit more.
Wow, that's awesome. So, I've seen a couple pictures of you. You're obviously clearly bigger. Were you a bigger kid? Was that something that you kind of grew into later in life? Like how did that weight come on to you? I know at some point you were, I think, close to 400 pounds.
Yeah. So I've always been a big kid. I weighed 215 in seventh grade and was little over 300 pounds when I graduated high school. Then when I got to college, I actually lost a bunch of weight. I played all the sports in high school as a big kid. Wasn't very good at them. And then when I got to college, I lost all my muscle mass. So that's where my weight loss came from. And then I gained the freshman 50 and drank beer and partied and ate out every day. And then it just continually got worse. When my wife was pregnant with our first kid, I actually gained more weight than she did during that pregnancy. And then she did well. She lost a whole bunch of the baby weight after that, and I just never lost that weight. And then during the second pregnancy, again, I gained more weight than she did. Just really unhealthy. I worked, 50, 60 hours a week. And so maybe ate breakfast, maybe ate lunch, and then I'd come home and have a humongous dinner and sit in front of the TV. And then at one point, it was right before my son's birthday, I stepped on the scale and it was just under 400 pounds, and it scared the daylights out of me.
I know you said seventh grade you were 215. So what was your expectation of food growing up?
We had a busy family, and we ate late. We ate whatever we ate. We were a modest family, so we ate the cheapest food that we possibly could. We lived in a really small town, so access to fruits and vegetables, we had the local grocery store, but you can imagine a small town in the middle of Wyoming, how great our fruit and vegetables were. And I grew up on meat and potatoes, farm community. You ate beef, you ate potatoes. It was quick and easy. And, when you have a busy family, that's kind of what you did.
Yeah, were there lots of people around you that were also kind of in a similar situation to you size-wise, or were you kind of the biggest one out of the bunch?
As far as at school, there was one other guy that was on the football team that was about as big as I was. And, for the most part, my family, they're just bigger. So I thought it was genetics, and I thought that was the way I was destined to be.
So such a common theme and story with so many people, myself included. When you were bigger, I know it kind of sounds like there were different stages in there, but what were some of the things that were just harder about life that you dealt with that maybe I'm guessing you don't deal with anymore?
So as I grew into an adult, I was just busy. I worked all the time. I came from a middle class family, and so when I got a job after college, I got really, really good at it, and I started making more money than my family had ever seen. So I was addicted to work, and I wanted to work and work and work. I wanted to make as much money as possible. So it was, as a car salesman, I might have had 10 minutes to go eat lunch. So I'd run down to Sonic and get a couple hamburgers, fries, and a Coke. And, in the 4 minutes that it took me to drive back to work, I'd have that slammed down so that I could get back to the floor. When I got home, I'd just be so tired from the day that I'd just come home and I'd eat and I'd just sit in front of the TV. Saturdays and Sundays were for football, all the food that comes with football, pizza, nachos, wings, chili. You just come home and you sit there all weekend in front of the TV and you just eat because it's social hour. And of course, with eating, you're drinking. And, I used to be able to put down a lot of alcohol, beer, whiskey. I could just drink and drink and drink. And obviously, the more you drink, the more you eat. And it was just a big cycle. And I love sweets. And, I could during Halloween, this is the toughest time of year for me because I could go to the store. I could buy fun-sized bag of Snickers, and I could pound that thing in about 20 minutes, and I wouldn't think twice about it.
And so, I know you had a decent amount of weight gain also kind of around when your kids were born. Was there ever a conversation between your wife and you about any concerns about, your weight as it pertains to health or anything? Or, was that ever anything that was mentioned?
I think it was that thing that just sits in everybody's mind, but you just never talk about it because it's an uncomfortable subject. You try to eat healthy, especially with her. There was a point where we were eating lean meat and vegetables all the time, and we weren't thinking about the large ice cream that we'd go get afterwards. So we'd eat fine during dinner, but she'd be like, "Oh, I have a craving for ice cream." So we'd go get ice cream, and she'd eat half of hers. I'd eat all of mine and hers, and you just never really thought twice about it. It wasn't, you didn't put that together that it was bad for you.
Yeah, and at 400 pounds, did you have any, health concerns that, were you on any medication? Did you have anything that that limited you or that worried you about the future at that point?
So I was never on any medication. I had high blood pressure since I took my first physical in 7th grade for football. And all the doctors just said, "Oh, it's not high enough to worry. It's not high enough to worry." And then there was a point for 3 years where I didn't go to the doctor, whether I was sick or, for anything, because I think I was scared that I'd get in there and they'd tell me how unhealthy I was. So I kind of avoided it. And then what was that follow-up question?
No, just, basically, was there anything that really that you saw that concerned you for the long term, more on the health side of things as far as, just potentially making life harder or, surgeries in the future, more, basically lifestyle diseases? Was there any of that really going on?
So every male in my family has prematurely died from some sort of heart disease. And I'm sure it leads from an extremely unhealthy life. A couple people smoked, so that led to it. But, I was kind of, when I was growing up, I was thinking, I'm going to eat whatever I want, do whatever I want, because I'm going to die early anyways, because that's just what males do in my family. So I kind of just didn't care. And then one day, that day that I stepped on the scale, I was like, oh shit, I'm on a fast track to a heart attack by 35. And if I don't do something, I'm not going to see my kids make it to high school, let alone see them graduate college, get married. So that was a major wake up call. I think everything just kind of hit me all within that week because it was my son's birthday and because, I stepped on the scale and I was like, oh man, what am I doing to myself? I just can't believe that I let myself get this far out of control. So I think that was my major wake up call was, a pretty good series of events.
Yeah, I think on your blog you said this: "One day I stepped on the scale and I was just short of 400 pounds. This scared me. It made me sick to my stomach. I was disappointed in myself. I wondered how I could let myself go so far out of control. I was on a one-way track to a massive heart attack at 35. I decided right then and there I was done. I would never step on the scale and feel like I did right then. I walked out of the bathroom, told Nikki something had to change right now, not tomorrow, not later today, right now." So, at that point it sounds like, at that point you had made a decision and like there was a past and there was a future and, almost the never shall meet. What had kind of brought you to that point? Like, had you already been considering anything, or was it literally just seeing that number on the scale just kind of like shook you?
So I had been on all sorts of diets here, diets there. I remember in college, this pill called Ally came out. It was this fat blocker pill, and I used to take it, and then I'd eat whatever I want because I was like, oh, it's going to block all the fat. I'm going to lose all this weight. And I just remember taking it, and I was like, nothing's happening. I didn't put two and two together that you actually had to do something, that the pill was just there as more of a mental thing to get you to eat better. And my wife and I, we'd go through cycles where she'd do really, really good and she'd lose weight, and I would just sit there and essentially sabotage her. I'd be eating a large pizza while she was sitting there eating a salad. And then I'd get on this kick where I'd do good, and then she'd be sitting there eating the pizza. And so we never worked together. We failed. I bet we failed 25 times at doing this. And, it was just that one day that I think it scared the living daylights out of me. that I stepped on the scale and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. I mean, I can't fail anymore.
Wow. So what did, I know it sounded like you were determined for the moment to change. So what did the moments and the days and the weeks after look like? Like what, you'd already become accustomed to this life that looks so vastly different than what you had hopes for the future. So what did you do to kind of put yourself on a track towards a different lifestyle?
So to that first question, it sucked. Um, so what I did was I had been reading all sorts of business books. I love business books, sales books, personal development books, and I had kind of been picking everything up. I essentially just gaining all this knowledge to be able to sell more cars. And that day that I woke up and stepped on the scale, I was thinking, what information do I have that I can, essentially use as far as fitness and health? And so what I did was I found a little 4-ounce salsa bowl, and anything that I ate went into that salsa bowl. I mean, it didn't matter if it was steak and potatoes. It didn't matter if it was lasagna. It didn't matter if it was M&Ms. Everything went into that salsa bowl. And what I had picked up was in this book called The Power of Habit, it talks about a cue and a reward. So my cue was when I got home from work, I would sit down and have a humongous meal and sit in front of the TV, and I wouldn't consciously think about how much I was eating. And then when I went up and got a second plate of spaghetti, I didn't even think about it. It was habit to do that. I had been overeating my entire life. So what I was trying to do is I figured out if I could change that habit of coming home and overeating, I could change everything else. And so when I sit down at the table and have that 4-ounce bowl of salsa, the salsa bowl of food, it made me consciously think about how much I was eating. And then throughout time, it's not that 4 ounces is all I would eat. It was just that conscious thought of, I have to get up. Now I'm getting up 3, 4, 5, 6 times to go get more food. And eventually you're like, well, this is stupid. I don't need all of this food. And, maybe I just don't even want to walk across to the oven to get more food. So it made me think a lot more about how much I was eating. And as I went through, I realized that I don't need anything more than maybe 1 or 2 salsa bowls of food. And then, eventually we started eating better food. But at first it was just all about that portion control and just changing that habit of overeating. And it took a really, really long time to get it where I didn't want to fill up my bowl. I didn't want to fill up an entire plate of food that I was fine with just that 4-ounce salsa bowl. And then eventually I got where I could have a plate and I knew how much food was supposed to go in there. So I could take a big plate and put on essentially a 4-ounce portion on my plate and be fine with it.
No, it was just funny. I saw where you said you even would portion your M&Ms in the salsa bowl. You went from eating a whole bag to just the 4-ounce salsa bowl.
Absolutely. Well, because you get a big bag of M&Ms and you go to the cupboard and you get a handful, and then you go back and you get another handful, or you sit in front of the TV and you think, oh, I'm just going to have a handful of them. Next thing you know, the bag's gone and you've subconsciously eaten an entire bag of M&Ms. So just focusing on that little bit of that, essentially a bag of candy, instead of eating a big bag, you're eating a little bag. And over time, those little bitty differences were huge, made a big difference. And then eventually I just didn't even want them anymore, because I'm like, well, if I can't have the whole bag, what's the point?
So how long did it take you to transition from the salsa bowl to the plate? I know you said it took you a while to,
So it took I started in March, about 6 months or so before I could consciously think about, if I got a plate, I could consciously just put that much food on my plate.
That's a lot of salsa bowl portions.
It is a lot of salsa bowl portions. Yep.
That's awesome. So, you have a blog, and hopefully we'll talk about that. But one of the things you said was, don't give up. I can't stress this enough. Most people give up because of the time it takes to accomplish their goals. What kept you motivated in that time? I know you said it was 6 months transition to a plate, and, it sounds like you've also witnessed probably with yourself and other people, it takes time. So what was kind of at the forefront of your mind during all that and really kept you going, kept you motivated at all times?
That scale. So my every day I would wake up and I would step on the scale, and I would, if I had a good day and I just felt good and I saw that scale drop, I'd be like, all right, we need to do this again. Do it again today. You know, you're doing great. Even if it was a 0.2 pounds, hey, you're going down today. So let's do it again today. And what I found out was on weekends, I would completely blow it. I'd drink a whole bunch on the weekends because that's what I was used to doing, or I'd overeat I'd do great Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, I'd blow everything. So I just got tired of giving up on myself. So, you know, eventually I went from Monday through Friday to Monday through Saturday. And then if I blew Sunday, you know, maybe I'd come back and step on the scale Monday morning and be like, oh, I can't believe that you screwed everything up. And I literally had like a 3-hour window on Sunday evening that I would screw everything up and I would lose all of my progress from the week. And I just got so mad at myself for doing that eventually I was like, you know what? Monday through Sunday, I don't care what it takes. We are going to stick to this plan. And so that was my motivation, was I just got tired of putting in all of this work and getting, you know, essentially on Monday morning, which is when I would take a look and see what my results were for the week. Monday morning, I got tired of stepping on that scale and seeing, you know, all of that work just gone. So we used to eat at buffets on Sunday, and that was probably the number one thing that I had to get rid of, because I was losing all of my progress through that stupid buffet.
Wow. Wow. They probably are hurting for business now.
They probably are a lot. Yep.
So I know, you know, kind of early in our conversation, maybe even before we started recording, you mentioned to me that it sounds like your relationship to the scale is different now. Maybe you could talk about that and also kind of how that came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So the scale was the only thing that I knew how to test myself, because the only thing that I changed to start out with was eating. I was literally too lazy to go for a walk. I mean, and I sure as hell wasn't running. So, you know, that was the only thing that I could focus on, that I could actually physically see some sort of instant gratification from what I was doing. And so as I started eating less and I just started walking, I mean, that was the only thing that I could do. And it was one block around our neighborhood, and then it was 2 blocks around our neighborhood. And so I really had no physical fitness at this time. So I focused on that scale just absolutely positively every second of every day. And as it took me a year, and I had lost 110 pounds in that first year. And then shortly after that year, my wife had done Couch to 5K. So she was starting to run. And I kind of got jealous that I was like, oh, she can run, you know. I kind of want to run. I kind of want to see if I can do it. So I started a similar program to that. And so I started running. And when I started running and getting into a daily routine of exercise as well as eating better, I actually started eating a little bit more, but I was eating better quality foods, so I could do that. And then with the exercise routine, I lost 50 pounds in something like 90 days. It was amazing. I had set up the habits that I needed, and I was just able to take advantage of those habits. And so I lost even more weight, and I was doing fantastic. And then when I finished my second marathon, I was down to the lowest weight that that I had been. And when I hit that, I started CrossFit, which is CrossFit and then a whole new nutrition plan. And I saw that scale go up and up and up, and I gained about 20 pounds in 45 days. And I was so frustrated with myself. I said, this whole new diet plan isn't working. You're eating more than you've ever eaten. And I just didn't put 2 and 2 together, that I was eating better quality food. It was better for my body. And I was doing more exercise, even though I'd been running a bunch. The weightlifting is completely different as far as how it builds on your body. And so in a 45-day time span, I had gained about 20 pounds. And through this nutrition plan, there was a body scan the day you started, and then 45 days later when the program ended. And I found out that I had gained like 10 pounds of muscle in that 45 days. And so from that day forward, I said, you know what, from now on, I'm not going to focus on the scale. I'm going to focus on how much faster I can run, how much farther I can run, how much more I can lift. As long as I'm following my eating plan, I know that that will take care of the rest of it. And then I just have to keep my physical fitness up so that I can do everything that I want to do. So, yeah, you're absolutely right that the relationship with the scale, it started out one way, and it's still frustrating when I step on that scale in the morning. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I wish that number would go down. But then I remember everything that I'm doing, and I'm like, well, if I wasn't eating this much, I wouldn't be able to just go out and run 30 miles. So,
yeah, well, I think you kind of breezed through the whole, like, I started walking, I started running, I started doing CrossFit. But from what I read on your blog, it sounded like you were extremely dismissive about the idea of a gym, about the idea of running, and walking kind of was what you were willing to explore. So can you kind of take us back there and talk about that a little bit, about the very beginnings of, whether you want to call it exercise or, movement? What did that look like, and where was your mind kind of at with that?
absolutely. So, I had mentioned my wife did Couch to 5K, and I had read a sales book called The Compound Effect. And if you've ever heard of the compounding penny, where, you're given the choice between $3 million today or a penny that compounds every day for 31 days, if you don't know any better, you just take the 3 million today. But if you know the compounding penny, you take it for 31 days because you'll have over 10 million at the end of 31 days. And so in this book, the sales trainer talks about his secretary and how she wanted to run a half marathon. And so he told her, just go take a walk around the block. And, she could walk a mile. So he said, start with a mile and then start adding a little bit more to your walk. And then when you get to 5 miles, then start running. And so that's exactly what I did, except for I could go around 1 block. And so I went around 1 block because that's what I could do. And then 2 blocks and 3 blocks. And literally it just slowly built up. And then when I was at work, if I had 10 minutes, I'd go walk around all the cars. And so I'd get an extra block or two while I was at work. And and just those little bitty steps took me from, having a struggle walking to, I was able to, by the end of the summer, I was able to go out and walk 2 18-hole rounds of golf, carrying my golf clubs up and down the hills. And that was my first goal, was to be able to just go out and play golf and, and be able to enjoy it. And so it took me a long time to even care about running. It was just all about walking. And I wouldn't have stepped foot in a gym if you would have paid me $100. I was embarrassed. Even though I worked out in high school, I hated every second of it. I hated running in high school. It didn't make any sense while I was out there doing it. I was so self-conscious of my body that I just felt disgusting. And I didn't think anybody wanted to look at me, if I got in the swimming pool, which is one of the best things you can do when you're overweight, because it's so minimal on your body, but it's so good for you as far as your physical fitness. So it took me a long time to get in the swimming pool. It took me a long time to get to the gym, because I was more worried about what other people were going to think of me, if they were going to make fun of me. Hey, here's this fat guy at the gym. What's he think he's doing? He's never going to change his life. And I had a lot of mental issues with the gym, and a lot of mental blocks into the gym. And even when I started going to the gym, that's a whole nother experience. I started that just like I did with my eating, just one day at a time, just trying to get there more than anything.
Yeah, and then I read you had a pretty funny story about signing up for your first half marathon. Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was watching my wife do the Couch to 5K, so that kind of got me into there. And then she told me that she wanted to run a half marathon, and I said, "You're crazy. I don't know why you would ever want to do that. 13 miles is stupid." I didn't even know how long a half marathon was. And then when she told me, no, you're absolutely nuts. I don't know why you want to do that. So she had a friend that was going to run it with her. And, she was training for it. She was getting ready for it. And then her friend said, "Oh, I'm not going to do it." And my wife was devastated, because she was working really hard for this. And my wife has never, ever been a runner. So the fact that she was working towards this was, one, phenomenal. And then she had somebody that was going to run it with her. So she was super excited, super motivated. And then when her friend backed out, I had this momentary just blackout point, and I told her I'd do it with her. And I immediately regretted the decision. Just absolutely. I saw it. It was almost like slow-mo come out of my mouth. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do now? I am not ready for this. And that was one of the toughest things I've ever done, because I don't read fitness and health books. I don't read about eating or running. It was all about business books and personal development books. So I had no idea what I was getting into, and it showed. That week before the half marathon, we were supposed to go out and do 10 miles, because she had read that, if you can do 10 miles, you can do a half marathon. And we went out, and it was October. It was like 80, 85 degrees, which in Wyoming doesn't happen. There was no water in the parks because they turn them off so that the water doesn't freeze. So we had no water, no hydration. We weren't prepared for it. It was the worst experience of my life. I almost quit running that day and never stepped foot in running shoes again. And I'm so thankful that we talked our way through it, because that next week was just, it changed my life.
Wow, that's awesome. I saw, and you talked about, you're in Wyoming. Weather can be brutal at times. And I think you said that, your first winter you knew was going to be a struggle. You knew that was a time where you were used to sitting on the couch, watching TV, eating terrible food. And it sounds like you guys actually kind of actively prepared for that. I think you said you canceled cable, you changed type of, you knew that you were going to be drawn to comfort food, so you changed that. You wouldn't sit on the couch on Sundays. How far in advance did you start really kind of preparing for that? And what made you realize that you really need to kind of almost attack or really proactively approach that?
Around the same time that I stepped on the scale at 400 pounds, our TV broke. And if you can imagine a fat guy that watches football, I have a 65-inch big screen TV. I had the football package, you name it, I had it.
Worst day of your life when your TV breaks.
Yeah, absolutely. So our TV broke, and we thought about it. We're like, well, should we fix it? It's like a $50 part. It's no problem. So we actually waited to fix it through the summertime. And so not having TV was one of the best things that we ever did, because we didn't have that excuse to come in and sit down in front of the TV. And so we ended up, towards the end of the summer, we were starting to hit, a really, really good stride, because the weather's beautiful here in the summertime. So we were outside, we were active, and we just got to talking about it on one of our walks one day. And we said, hey, should we just dump this and say, let's just get over it? And so that's what we did. We did prepare, about a month in advance, because football starts, mid-August, early September. So we had decided early August that we're just not going to have football for this year. It was devastating, absolutely devastating to me. I thought, how am I ever going to live? I'm not going to be able to watch ESPN. I'm not going to know what's going on with football. I'm not going to know what's going on in the world. And so it was a hard decision. But the good news is it saved us like $150 a month. That was probably one of the best things. I mean, you can do a lot with $150 a month. You can buy more fruits and vegetables and eat a little bit better, just take a day trip, which is what we ended up doing. We took that $150 and maybe we'd run to Fort Collins and just spend the day out of the house, which getting out of the house on a Sunday broke our habit of sitting there and eating all day. And then when we were in the house, we love pizza, nachos, all that good comfort food. We just found different ways to make it. So instead of making, regular spaghetti, we make this spaghetti squash pizza, mix, I guess you would call it. So it's just so much better for you. We use better ingredients. Nachos, instead of making nachos with chips, we make it with those little sweet peppers. We just cut it up and we put some good stuff on it. That way you still have your dip, you still get your comfort food, but you're just eating better quality food with it. We looked up, we tried all sorts of different recipes. One of the hardest things for me is throwing away food and not cleaning your plate. And so when I would sit there and I knew that I knew I had too much food on my plate, I'd sit there and I'd eat half of it. And as soon as I felt full, I would just go throw it in the trash. And I just I wouldn't wait. I knew that I had already overeaten, but instead of continuing to overeat or saving it for later, I just go throw it in the trash, because once it touched the trash, I was cool with it being gone. So that was definitely a change as well with that comfort food. because, you know, you get that habit of that 4-ounce salsa bowl isn't going to do much with nachos. So, you know, that took a lot of getting used to.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I know you talked about your kids being a motivation, and I read this. You said, I really just wanted to be able to get healthier so I could play with my kids without getting fatigued. Being able to play with my kids, I realized at that moment in time, had been my real motivation the entire time. So, I know we didn't talk about it much. What was life like with kids before losing the weight, and then what had life become with kids after losing the weight?
So I call it being a sideline parent. I'd stand on the side and I'd watch my kids just go play, you know, if I even took them to the park, or I'd sit there, you know, at night. I'd be so exhausted from the day. I'd come home and I'd eat a humongous dinner, sit in front of the TV, and I wouldn't even talk to my family just because I was just so grumpy for the day. And I just felt so tired from the day. So that was my escape, was just sit in front of the TV. So quite honestly, I didn't spend a whole lot of time with my kids. They weren't a priority to me. I couldn't do it too much with them. I worked all the time, so I didn't get the time to go spend with them when they had a friend's birthday party, or, you know, I didn't take them to the park. It was just it was not something that we did as a family. And so when I started losing weight and I started having more energy, I noticed that I could play with them. Even if it wasn't a lot, I could actually spend some time with them. And as I've progressed throughout, I wake up in the morning, I run, I CrossFit, I do everything that I do. I can come home on Sunday morning after doing all that, shower, get them ready, take them out all day, wear them out. They can come home and take a nap, and I'm still ready to go. And then when they wake up, you know, let's get out of the house, let's go do something. And there's days where they spend the day with me and they're exhausted by the end of the day just because we're just going. And we went to a birthday party not too long ago at a gymnastics place here in town. And I was running around with all the kids, literally jumping over them. The kids just had a blast. And I had a couple parents afterward come up and say, "How do you have that much energy? You know, I could never do that." And right then and there, I knew that I had made the right change, because I was that parent that was watching, you know, the other parents have fun with the kids, and watching all these kids just surround this one person and have so much fun. And it just kind of justified my decision to make that change, that I don't have to sit there and watch my kids, you know, essentially get to have fun with somebody else. Now they get to have fun with me. And that's been a life changer for me. And they'll even go out for a 1 mile run with me every once in a while, especially in the summertime. And they did a kids race this summer, it was amazing to just go out and run just a couple blocks with them. And they got to cross the finish line and put their arms up. And so that's been amazing. And when I crossed the finish line at my 50 miler, my whole family got to be with me. And that was an experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So anything, you know, obviously your kids are a huge change. Anything else in life that's changed for you that you weren't necessarily anticipating, whether it's, you know, physical, emotional, mental, social, in your marriage? Any things that have kind of, you know, just taken a real turn that you would have never thought in the first place?
All of the above. Absolutely. I'm a completely different person than I was 4 years ago. And I look back at it now and I say, you know, how can somebody change that much, or how could I have ever been that way? And I don't, you know, there's a lot of highlights from that last several years, but it's all about those little bitty things that I just, you know, that I made on a daily decision that have just added up to becoming a completely different person. The energy that I have, I used to wake up at 7, hope that I could make it to work on time. And now I'm up, you know, I sleep very little. I'm up at way before the rest of the world. And I have more done by 7 o'clock in the morning than most people get done all day. And I don't need sleep anymore. I sleep about 5-6 hours a night. I'm ready to get up and just get to work on the day. I can go out and I can run 20 miles and then function for the rest of the day. I have so much more energy when I'm with people. I have more energy to learn. I have more energy to work on my business during the day. My attitude is completely different. I used to be mean. I used to be, for the lack of a better word, I was a complete jerk. And now I get to smile all day, and I feel better about myself. I feel better about people, and I have so much energy. I don't know what to do with it. It's hard to sit still for me for more than about 3 minutes, because I'm just ready to get up and start doing something else. Um, my mind functions so much better than it ever functioned. And I think just clearing out a lot of those processed chemicals that I used to eat, and just my body being weighed down by all of that food, I feel so much better. I think so much better. I can think faster. I read more. And my wife and I, we have more energy to spend time with each other, which has been phenomenal. We can go do something, and without getting too personal, things have been much better for us than they were 4 years ago.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, I know you went from laughing at your wife thinking that she was going to run 13 miles to running, 20 miles regularly in the morning. What does your week look like these days in terms of physical activity?
So Mondays, I always take off just as a rest day to give my body time to recover. And I don't know why I picked Mondays. It just kind of happened that way. So Tuesdays, I'll run about 8 miles and do CrossFit. Wednesdays, I'll do CrossFit and swim and sit in the hot tub. Thursdays, I have a couple people that I just go run trails with, and that's just our time to talk. It's not a training day. It's nothing special. It's not fast. We just go out and just essentially get to spend time with each other, because we're all so busy that 4 o'clock in the morning is the only time that we can find to spend time with each other. Fridays, I go back to CrossFit. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I usually pick a day to do CrossFit. And then I'll do anywhere from 20 miles over the weekend to 40 miles over the weekend, just kind of depending on what kind of time I have and what kind of training schedule I'm in for my next race. And
looks a little different than 4 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So any life or physical goals that you're working towards now? Anything on the horizon that you're looking forward to?
So as far as running, I'm running the Leadville 100 next year. So that's kind of taken all my focus as far as the physical activity side. I got into the lottery after I finished my 50 miler in Leadville this summer, and the Leadville 100's been on my radar for as soon as I figured out I wanted to start running ultras. It was kind of one of those things where I put it on my vision board and just said, when it happens, it happens. And I got a nice push into it when they drew my number. So I'm super happy about that. And that's my motivating factor about continuing my physical fitness, and anything I can learn about eating better and everything. That's where my main focus is there. As far as family, just spend more time with my kids and do everything I can with them. And then as far as business and fitness, I'm starting to do some motivational speaking, and I'm working on doing some running coaching on the side. And I talk to people all the time via email and social media as far as just networking with people. I've done a couple chats with, I just did a high school girls softball team in August, went down and talked to them about goals and action, and how they could just essentially be better at what they're doing. So, and I write a weekly blog, and hopefully by the end of 2017, I can publish at least one book. So I've been working on that quite a bit as well. Something to do at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, right. Whenever you have too much energy to sleep.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and I'm sure you get this question all the time, but, if you could have a conversation with somebody who's at the beginning of this journey, who's where you were 4+ years ago, who, is still on the couch, watching TV, eating all the things, and is struggling to kind of make the next move towards a healthier life, what advice or what would you say to that person to kind of get them moving in the right direction?
The number one thing that I tell people is find one thing and focus on it diligently every single day. Because when I talk to a lot of people, they say, "Oh, I'm going to do this, with my eating. I'm going to do this diet, and I'm going to do this 30-day product, and then I'm going to go out and I'm going to run 20 miles today, and I'm going to do this." And just focus on one thing. And that could be just focus on eating less, eating better, just changing your diet, could be taking a walk. If you're already doing some sort of physical fitness, maybe it's just bumping up, but just find that one thing and focus on it for 30 days. If you're doing great at 30 days, then think about adding something else. If you're not, if you haven't mastered that in 30 days, if it's not a habit in 30 days, don't move on to the next thing. Just stay persistent with that one thing. If it takes you 90 days to become persistent at that one thing, stick with it for 90 days. It took me 6 months to persistently be able to eat less. And so I didn't focus on anything else. I wasn't trying to become a runner. I wasn't trying to do some crazy diet. I wasn't even trying to eat better. I was still eating all the same crap I'd always been eating. I was just trying to change that one factor of eating less. And that one habit has allowed me to change everything else. And it's taken a lot of time. I mean, that's one thing. Everybody wants these instant results. They want a 30-day product that's going to change everything for them. And a product's not going to do squat for you. You're going to see some results. And then as soon as you get off that product, all those results are going to be gone because you didn't change the underlying problem. You just gave it a prescription to help out for 30 days. And then the second thing that I would do is set your goals humongous. I mean, literally set your goals as high as you want. My first goal, and now I look at it, it was too low of a goal, but my first goal was to lose 100 pounds. And somebody told me one time, if you set out to lose 20 pounds, it's not going to do you any good at your weight. I mean, they weren't being mean. They were just being completely upfront and honest with me. 20 pounds is not going to make you a healthier person. You need to make a humongous change. You can't just go out and lose 20 pounds and think your life's going to be better. So I set that first goal at 100. And then when I got to about 80, I said, I have a lot farther to go. So before I even hit that 100, I set my goal to 150. And by setting those humongous goals, I was willing to take more action and I was willing to do more because I wanted to get to that goal. I could have lost 20 pounds I could have probably not eaten for 2 days and lost 20 pounds. And then I would have been right back into the same position because I would have gained 20 and then probably gained another 20 on top of it. So, you just got to set those goals big and you're going to fail. Let's face it. I don't eat good every day. I never have eaten good every day. When you have a bad day, the day's gone. Get over it. Wake up the next morning and just restart. And you can't beat yourself up about it. When I used to have those weekend binges, I'd wake up Monday morning, I'd be frustrated, but I'd say, well, I can't do anything about the weekend. It's gone now. So I got to start back over today. And eventually I just got so tired of starting over that I just said, let's just keep doing it. Let's just get some momentum and just keep rocking it. So yeah, one thing at a time, one day at a time, and don't ever give up.
That's awesome. Great advice. And if you could go back in time and have a conversation with, your former almost 400-pound self before that day that you jumped on the scale that you think, and say some words to that person who you think maybe would have given a little bit of a push. Is there anything, that you think you could have said that maybe would have started this process earlier?
That's a tremendous question. I was a little stubborn back then, and if I could go back in a time machine, I'd really like to just punch myself in the face and say, dude, what are you doing? You have no idea how good your life could be. And you have no idea what you could have accomplished if you wouldn't have been like this for the last, 28 years. If you would have just changed a few things here and there, you could be so much farther than where you are. But, just the day that I could talk to him, I'd say, just make that change right now. Don't wait any day longer. Don't wait till you hit your breaking point. Just start right now and just do something.
Awesome. Well, and then lastly, where can people, connect with you, find out more about what you're doing?
So I write a weekly blog and you can find it at outrunyourexcuses.com. And then I'm on Facebook. You can hit me up at Gary Stotler, or I run a personal blog, and it's facebook.com/400TO26.2. I'm on Instagram. I love Instagram. It's 400TO26.2. And I'm still learning Twitter. That's 400TO26 and then point spelled out, POINT 2. And I'm anything, just let me know. You can send me an email, Gary@outrunyourexcuses.com. And sometimes it takes me a little while to get back with you. I try to stay busy as much as possible, but you'll get an email at 3:00 in the morning one day if you send me one. So You know, it took 24 hours for me to get back with you because I was just doing crazy things. So,
Hey, look, 24 is good for me. Sometimes it takes me a bit longer. Well, Gary, I just want to say thanks for taking the time, and I'll look forward to hearing about how Leadville goes next year. Early congratulations, and maybe I'll see you in Laramie sometime.
absolutely, stop on by anytime. We'll go hit some mountaintops.
Sounds great. Well, have a great day.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, goodbye.
Bye.